plane is positioned north of here.
Good.
General, give us a 1 mile perimeter.
Forget it, Richards. You had your shot, and you blew it. This is a military operation now, so jam the signal, get out of the way, and let us do our job.
You don't understand.
No, you don't understand. So let me make it clear for you and your pack of freaks here. I'm the quarterback. You're on my team. Got it? But I guess you never played football in high school. Did you, Richards?
No, you're right. I didn't. I stayed in and studied like a good little nerd. And 15 years later, I'm one of the greatest minds of the 21st century. I'm engaged to the hottest girl on the planet. And the big jock who played quarterback in high school, well, he's standing right in front of me asking me for my help. And I say he's not gonna get a damn thing unless he does exactly what I tell him and starts treating my friends and me with some respect.
Give him what he wants.
I'm so hot for you right now.
Me too. Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine. And it's been a week for you guys, but it's been only about 5 minutes for us. Kelen Conley is back. Kel, how you doing?
I'm great, man. Glad to be back. Very glad to be back.
Glad you could find your way back here. I mean, I know it was
a long trip to the bathroom and back to the seat, but I made it. I made
awesome.
it.
But anyway, so in those 5 minutes, I assume there's nothing else that has caught your interest that we could really talk about. So I think we should just jump straight into the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
We can totally get to this because I'm ready for it.
I will say that I can see on the video you've got that Spider-Gwen poster behind you that is really awesome. So
I do
note that.
Thank you very much. I got Spider-Man 2009 up there too. So.
Oh, I can't see that one. That one's just
he's a little cut off.
Yeah.
I may have to bring him down, maybe.
Okay, but yeah, I love that Spider-Gwen poster. Anyway, that's the things that's caught my interest in the 5 minutes is that poster.
There we go.
But anyway, today we are talking about the second of Tim Story's Fantastic Four movies, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer from 2007. Which this one, we got basically the whole cast back, including, everybody's favorite, Julian McMahon as Doom.
Woo!
But we also get some new people in this. We get Andre Braugher as General Hager, Doug Jones playing the Silver Surfer, Lawrence Fishburne providing the voice, and Bo Garrett as Frankie Ray, who in the comics becomes Nova, another herald of Galactus.
Very true. Yes, he does.
So let's jump into that. What did you think of Rise of the Silver Surfer?
I remember watching this movie, Perry, in the theater, and I was like sitting there, and then like the wedding got interrupted at the beginning, and I was like, oh, that's classic FF. And then Reed and Sue were having problems because Sue wanted to have a fancy wedding, everything, and then Fantastic Four just kept getting in the way essentially because they're always saving the world at this point. They're the biggest superhero. They're the only superheroes in this world. So they're constantly saving each other's butts, or saving other people's butts rather. And then they introduced the Silver Surfer, and they nailed the Silver Surfer. I was like, yo, they talk about the FX. Let's jump right in that. The FX and the Silver Surfer is beautiful. He looks like he's glowing. The board is awesome. The whole, there's not a moment when he's on a screen that he doesn't hold your entire attention. Doug Jones, that is, as a Silver Surfer. So that was very cool. I was like, yo, they're gonna pull this off. They're gonna pull off a Silver Surfer story. And then Doom showed back up, and I was like, and then suddenly Doom got cured, which we'll talk about. And my face is normal, so you guys should trust me. And they're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And I was like, oh, that's a classic swerve where they're trusting the bad guy, and then the FF's gonna have to work their way around that. And then they were switching powers back and forth, which I thought was a very cool dynamic because I never remembered reading any issues where they changed powers. I'm sure they have because there's many issues with the Fantastic Four. Of course, they've switched powers at some point. But I really like that plot device in the film where the power cosmic had affected Johnny, and then all of them were switching powers. So that was cool. And then we kept moving right along, and they're like, "Oh, there's this world eater that's coming." I was like, "Yo, they're going to introduce Galactus. They're going to do it. This is going to be so cool. We're going to see Galactus. I can't believe this." And then ultimately, when Surfer decided he was going to fight back against Galactus, and they took on Galactus, they took on a cloud, and we saw Galactus's head for a few minutes. And and then
I think a
after
few
that,
minutes is maybe putting it being generous. Seconds more like it.
Sorry, seconds. And then they beat the cloud. And then Reed and Sue got married. And then there were, the Fantastic Car was there, which is very cool.
Fantastic Car, yeah.
And then that was roll credits. So rather than being disappointed in Doctor Doom, we're not as disappointed by him this movie. I was definitely disappointed with the delivery of Galactus. And all I can say is my friend Prophet looked at me and he said, "Dude, can't believe it made Galactus a fucking cloud." I was like, me neither, man. Me neither.
All right. So before I go into my thoughts, I did want to talk about what our departed buddy Derek said about this, because he had, for anyone who doesn't know, before Derek before I roped Derek into doing this show with me, he was mostly known for writing movie reviews online, and he wrote great movie reviews. And I found this one. The site's still online, by the way, DerekLFerguson.wordpress.com. You can find a link at superherocinephiles.com under our works. But anyway, he wrote a review of Rise of the Silver Surfer back in 2011. And there are these two paragraphs I wanted to quote here because I think they sum up a lot of my thoughts.
Okay.
Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer has something that, for me, places it head and shoulders above a lot of other superhero movies. At last, we've got a superhero movie where the superheroes are actually having fun being superheroes. The Fantastic Four are media darlings. They live well. They obviously have money. They're respected by the public. There's not a whole lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth and woe is me, why was I cursed with these powers here? I think that the filmmakers honestly tried to bring to this movie that sense of wonder that comic books used to be about, and I think they pulled it off just fine. The story takes us all over the world. There are incredible gizmos and gadgets Mr. Fantastic pulls out of his hip pocket every 5 minutes. The family dynamics of the characters is given just as much time and attention as the menace of the world being eaten. Johnny gets an interesting character arc where by the end of the movie, he's grown up a little and has learned something about responsibility. The Silver Surfer is surprisingly faithful to the spirit of the comic book character. That's not to say that the movie made me do cartwheels of joy in the aisles. And I just got a picture of Derek doing cartwheels.
Me too. Me too.
For anyone who doesn't know, Derek was a pretty big guy. So that would have been fun to watch.
That'd have been quite the feat.
Yeah.
He probably would not have gotten up for that. He probably like, get me off this floor.
That's not to say, much as I like Julian McMahon, I still say he's badly miscast as Dr. Doom. And there's actually no reason for Doom to be in this movie at all, except to have an obligatory fight scene at the end. But at least in this fight, I could tell what was happening, unlike any of the fights in Spider-Man 3. It was never explained to my satisfaction why or how Doom was resurrected and restored to normal. And even several of the characters in the movie demand an explanation from Doom. He just gives them a shit-eating grin and goes back to greasing the general. Ian Grufford and Jessica Alba actually look as if they're really enjoying acting together, while Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis once again prove that they have actually read some of the comics because they hit exactly the right note in the relationship between Johnny and Ben. And even though much of the story elements were taken from the classic Galactus trilogy, it still ain't that story. All right. So those two paragraphs, I think, is a good summation of Derek's thought. And because he was such a big FF fan, I thought it was important to give his words some note in this episode.
And that's our whole episode, guys.
That's it. We're done. Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles. I remember being really excited about this movie when I saw that first trailer. And you remember I don't think it was a full trailer. It was just that chase sequence between the Torch and the Silver Surfer, which remains one of the best chase sequences in any superhero movie. Like and talking about the effects on the Surfer, like the effects, and we were talking the last movie too. The effects in this really hold up. Like they did a really great job with the effects. This movie looks great.
It looks great, start to finish. That chase scene, like you said, it should be more iconic than what it is. But people are just so determined to dismiss these films that they don't go back and really look at them. These films have a lot of fun moments in it, and this one especially. This is the better film. This is the best Fantastic Four movie that's ever been produced.
Absolutely.
I agree with your tweet from earlier. And watching Johnny chase the Silver Surfer across that sky, and then Johnny ultimately, like when his flame goes out and he starts falling, watching. I mean, I know that Chris Evans was acting on a green screen, but watching the terror on his face as he starts to fall back towards Earth, like I felt that was a crazy moment. And honestly, you could tell also this is the first time Johnny had ever really been bested in that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It really humbled him. And so I really appreciated that. And then even though it was a cloud, like the Galactus fight was cool. We got a lot of the cool. You could really tell the difference between when Surfer had his surfboard and when he didn't have a surfboard. He was way more muted. He wasn't as silvery. So you could tell that. And then even when Doom had taken over the surfboard and became Silver Surfer Doom, I roll and sigh deeply. Even with him wielding the power cosmic for that little bit of movie that he had, it still came across looking great. So kudos to the FX team on this movie.
Well, one of the things I loved about the chase scene, and I forgot this moment was in the movie, but when they go in the tunnel and the surfer flies through the bus, literally flies into the bus and like arranges the molecules around it and just goes straight through it.
Right. That was so right.
And then he just comes and he tilts underneath to look back through. He falls under the board so he can look back, and then he goes back up. And even Johnny's like, "Oh, that's so cool!"
right, because it is. Like, he's never seen anything like it. And again, kudos to Tim Story and the whole team. They brought the Silver Surfer to life. This was the first Herald of Galactus that we met in the comic books, and he's like, I have to do this, and I have to help him feed, and they really nailed everything from the Galactus trilogy up until the point where Galactus showed up. So
one of the things that always
love that
that annoyed me about the and again, this is a 60s thing, right? But the whole idea that the Silver Surfer calls himself the Silver Surfer and he is actually riding a surfboard, right? That's not the case in this movie, right? The surfboard, it's just a disc. It's just a long disc. It doesn't have the little surfboard tail like in the comics.
It does not. So they did modernize it just slightly.
And he doesn't call himself the Silver Surfer. Like Johnny's the one who gives him that name. He's like, he looked like some kind of silver surfer, and I know what
Johnny's
that sounds
good at
like.
naming things.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? It could be a 60s thing, of course, like you were saying, but they did modernize it when by not making it, but by modernizing the board and making it more disc like you said. So it never really bothered me back then, and it didn't bother me either when he was calling himself the Silver. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry, it didn't bother me when he would call himself third person back then, because he was also very much a slave to Galactus as well. Right. So he probably didn't even think of using those kind of those identifying words such as I or me or anything like that, because there wasn't any I or me. It was only, everything was for Galactus, because that was the servitude he was under. So I can see that, and I'm glad that they didn't do that as much as the movie, because it could have gotten confusing really fast. But I can appreciate it both ways.
Yeah. I will defend the Cloud to an extent.
Okay.
All right. Because
defend the Cloud.
So first off, this did happen in the comics, right? It was in the Ultimate Extinction trilogy that Warren Ellis did. And in that, Galactus was not a giant guy, a giant purple cosmic guy. He was like this swarm of super intelligent machines or something like that. And it did resemble a cloud. So, and at this time, like, again, remember, this is 2007. This is pre-Avengers we're talking here.
I know. We're 5 years away from Avengers.
I think if you had a giant purple guy with this big-ass helmet and being like, I hunger, I think most regular people would have laughed their asses off.
They would have.
I don't think that the world was really ready for it at that time. So I will defend the idea of doing it as a cloud just on that basis. Like, I don't like it, but I understand why they did it. That being said, I still think that they tried to cram too much into this movie, and they really should have saved the Galactus portion of it for another movie.
Yes. This movie suffers the exact same way from the first movie.
Yeah.
because again, they spend a lot of time showing off the Silver Surfer and look how cool Silver Surfer is, and then of course they're trying to chase down the Silver Surfer, and we're trying to separate them from the board, and then they're like, oh, well, we have Doom sitting over here. Let's go ahead, and we got to pay Julian McMahon money, so let's have him mosey back into the plot. And so that's coming up the works.
Yeah.
And then they get him separated from the board. And then Doom, of course, steals the board. And then it's like, oh, Julian McMahon is now Super Silver Surfer Doom. And we have to go fight him. And oh, by the way, let's kill Jessica Alba for a good, what was it, 10 minutes?
Something like that. Yeah.
Like that. Let's kill Sue, which served no point because Silver Surfer Sue's got the board back. He's like, and it was nice touch in the moment. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, good. She's not going to die, because here I am thinking I'm going to get like another 2 or 3 Fantastic Four movies probably. So I was like, oh, good.
So much for that.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's cool. But every time I see it afterwards, I'm kind of like, yeah, she really didn't need to die. I mean, I know that he cared for her because she reminded him of his people, and everything. And in the comic books, of course, didn't he have a crush on her at one point? Like, or am I thinking about I know Namor always liked her.
I mean, when you're talking about those early comics, was there any character who didn't have a crush on Sue? It's like every single supervillain wanted to make her his bride.
I mean, she was so submissive, Perry. I mean, how could a regular Joe pass up on that?
But even like there was even like a brief kind of almost love triangle-esque thing, like between her, Ben and Reed, and Reed.
Oh,
Ben and Reed, because like there was the first issue is like I'll show you what a real man is like, Susie, and you should realize you should be with me or something like that.
And then he punches the tree.
Yeah.
They're like, dude, you're a monster.
Dude, but
I forgot that.
Sue made everybody horny in those old comics.
She really did, and you're right, because Ben would always make those offhand comments about like blah, blah blah. If I wasn't a monster, I'd show you a thing or two. And she's like, "Oh, Ben, where's Reed?" But so yeah, I'm pretty sure Surfer had some kind of feelings for her in the comic books, so it was nice to see that picked up on. But a whole lot of things happening. The power switching again was cool and ultimately factored into the ending of the movie where Torch took on all the powers, and they kind of did the Super Skrull thing, where the Super Skrull has like all their powers, except it was just Johnny using all the powers to unite and take out the Doom ultimately, and Galactus. So again, a lot of good ideas, and you're like, let's keep adding things in, and all of a sudden they were at, oh crap, we got to resolve this movie and get Reed and Sue married so they can run off to the next thing.
Yeah,
we still got to squeeze all this in. So yes, I'm with you there.
The power, Johnny taking all the powers at the end there, I had an issue with it as I'm watching the movie last night, because I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to figure out how the physics of it actually work, because all up until this point, every time he touches another one of the team, their powers switch. Like he doesn't gain their powers. So I felt like they played up this whole aspect of the power switching for laughs, right? Like, Sue gets lit on fire. Ben does it so that he can turn normal and he can throw a fireball at Johnny, and so Johnny can turn into the thing.
Yes.
But then when it happened at the end, like he touches them all at the same time, and suddenly all their powers flow into him, and there's no switching going.
Right. I think there was, like, how did they figure out what was the trigger?
Yeah.
Was it because it was the seriousness of the situation? It's like, okay, guys, let's do this thing that we haven't tried the whole movie, and we're just gonna pour all of our powers into one of us.
Right. Yeah.
So it was a very convenient plot device.
Yeah. That was an issue I had with that. What else really kind of jumped out at me? God, Doom is just so unnecessary in this movie. Just completely unnecessary.
I liked him more because he got to be regular Victor more. Once he got Power Cosmic, or before he got the Power Cosmic, and once he got his face healed and he went and like, I can help the Fantastic Four, and then they're all like, what are you doing? And like he said, he's like, shitting grin, help me, bitches. I did appreciate that, but then the minute he got to steal that board and put that cloak back on, it's like, okay,
yeah,
it's okay, you're gonna get your ass beat again.
I like too that they gave him an actual suit of armor in this movie.
Yeah.
Right. He's got the armor, and it's got some tech functions, right? He's using, and I did like that. That was something that was definitely missing, because one of the things I think people forget about Doom is the fact that that armor that he wears, that's not for show. Like that's like Iron Man level armor.
Yeah, it's fully equipped with everything. It's got rocket boots, it's got finger guns. Of course, he's always running around with life model decoys of his robot, of himself, Doombots, constantly fooling people back in the day. And it's like, I got you, Doom, and Spider-Man web a robot. And he's like, haha, I'm standing over here.
And then the Doombots ended up being a convenient plot excuse for a convenient
why he didn't die.
Anytime Doom did something that a writer didn't like, they just be like, that was a malfunctioning Doombot.
Right. Or how about the time he jumped out of a plane to escape the Fantastic Four and Ben's like trying to reach him and he just completely hops out of plane. Like and he had like no, of course they thought he just jumped, but once he was far out of eyesight, he sprung out a secret parachute. So I did like the fact his armor was more functional, and I'm going to say that was probably maybe a note that the studio took as far as him actually having metal skin and the scarring and stuff. They're like, all right, well, we need to show Julian McMahon's face more, and we kind of got to give him a real costume. So
which is weird because then they forgot that note. That note I guess that memo got lost when they made the Josh Trank movie.
And all that stuff got burned.
Yeah,
it's probably still sitting at Tim Story's house when he's working on Fantastic Four 3. Like, hey, can I borrow your notes? He's like, no. No, thank you.
I think too, this script, I think also just like the first one, it's not as bad in this one as it was in the first one, but I think Sue ends up getting shafted in the character department in here as well, because she's not quite as bratty as she was in the first one, but there's still a bit of that. Like, she's getting like when she gets angry at Reed for having the bachelor party, and then later she talks about her own bachelorette party, and I'm like, well, you just said that you had your own thing, so why are you getting mad at him?
How is that even a thing? Right? It's irrational. There's no point in it.
But also, like, her getting so, like, I get the fact that she's frustrated with him, but you know, it's not like he's sitting around playing video games, right? I mean, he's doing important shit. So I think
he's part of your team, and you guys routinely are saving the world from threats. So it didn't get that at all.
Have you seen Superman and Lois?
I've not seen Superman and Lois.
Okay, so I tell the story all the time, but I'm going to keep saying it because I think it's one of the most mature ways to handle a superhero relationship.
Okay.
So you've got in the first season, Lois asked Clark to go to this city hall meeting to cover it for her because she can't be there. Okay. And he's going to go there. She tells him, like, I need you to be my voice there. I need you to speak up and, you know, talk about these issues. And he says, yeah, I'll do it. Something comes up as Superman. He has to go do Superman stuff. So he misses the meeting. Later, he comes back and he apologizes. He's like, look, I'm so sorry. I tried to. And she says, look, I know you're Superman. I know you were doing something important. And I know it's illogical, but I'm still angry. Right. Yeah. And it was a very mature way to handle it. And I think if they had handled it something like that, I would have understood it more. But as it stands, she just comes off as very petulant.
Right. And it seems like the biggest, like, her character arc, the whole movie is just like, I gotta get married to Reed. I gotta get married to Reed. And that just seems to be her primary focus the entire film. And I get that you were minutes away from being married in the first place. And I think that was like the third, or there were several attempts.
The fourth time, I think it was.
Yeah, the fourth time. Yeah, so several
because
attempts.
Because at the end, they say fifth time's the charm.
yes, they do. So I get you've been trying to marry the man, and you want to pin down Reed Richards because Lord knows he's a hot commodity out in these streets.
Well, I don't know. After that dance scene, man, I mean,
hey, they were impressed, but there was a lot of innuendo laid out there in your endo.
Speaking of, I didn't catch this until this last, because I've seen this movie several times. I didn't catch this until last night. I think outside of the Deadpool movies, this movie has the dirtiest joke of any Marvel movie.
Really?
Because there's that scene when when Johnny and Ben are talking, and Johnny's asking about his relationship with Alicia, and he's like, "How do you guys, you know?" And Ben says, "That's none of your business." And Johnny says, "Okay, it's like, look, I'm concerned because I don't want to wake up and find she's been killed in a rock slide." And I didn't realize it until now, but he's making a cum shot joke.
He truly is. He truly is. Yeah, I've always laughed at that joke just because obviously he's the thing and he's a rock slide. But
I was always thinking of it like as in like him being like crushing her physically,
Right,
like his body.
right.
But then I realized the last time, like, oh wait, no. Now I realize what he's saying.
Ooh, wow. That joke is even more funnier now. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Oh. Poor Alicia. Poor Alicia, we hardly knew ye. Shut up, Johnny. I'm trying to mourn over here. Oh man. Ugh. I think you're right though. That's pretty filthy. Pretty filthy.
And I think they got a much better handle on Reed in this movie as well. Like I think they'd really captured that whole, absent-minded genius type of thing. And I think and also I like they give him a moment with Johnny, right? I like that moment when he's talking, when him and Johnny are talking in the Baxter building. He's telling Johnny about the anomaly and everything,
right?
And then Johnny uses that to blackmail him into having a bachelor party.
Of course, Johnny's always thinking on his feet.
That's perfect for both. It perfectly describes both their characters, right? Reed gets all excited and jazzed up about this science stuff. He wants to tell somebody. Johnny couldn't give less of a shit, but he sees a way to turn this to his advantage to party.
Right, of course.
And I thought that was a great way of handling that dynamic between the two of them.
Right, I like that moment too. They definitely handled Reed way better because again, before Reed was the failed scientist who thought he had hurt his friends, and then also he's trying to get back with, all of a sudden his girlfriend is back with him, so to speak, because of this thing that happened. So there was a lot of moving pieces that never really fit together in the first movie for Reed. And this one, fully formed, like you said, he's getting married to Sue. Don't gotta worry about any of that drama outside of just a little bickering back and forth.
Right.
He really gets to put on show off his scientist skills here. Like Derek said, he did pull out all kinds of gadgets. He was constantly with, oh, I got this and I'm researching this. And it was always like, yo, you can really tell that Reed is in the lab.
Yeah.
Reed is doing work. And that wasn't as evident in the first movie. I know he was like, I'm going to try to cure Ben, but that was like the only thing he was doing.
Right.
In this film, you can tell he's really in the 2 years, I believe, in between films. I think they acknowledge that in the movie. You can really tell how much he's grown into his role as the leader of the Fantastic Four and as this one of the most amazing minds on planet Earth, essentially now that he's a world famous superhero and he has all the funding he could ever need. So they really did good with Reed, and I want to say, back to Derek's review, Ian and Jessica Alba do have more chemistry in this film than they did the first one. Because again, she had so much little things to do, and there was some words said here and there, and it's like, okay, I kind of see she's going back to Reed and but you could tell that there was chemistry this time. Maybe it was because of their second outing, their second time on the set together, and everything like that. Who knows? Who knows about table reads and everything like that? But you could tell they really worked at making their relationship seem like it was truly Reed and Sue, and it wasn't Reed and Sue as much Stan and Jack. It was Reed and Sue of John Byrne era, and Claremont era.
Now there's something I want to note too about Alba's acting, because she got a lot of criticism for her performance in this movie, and that's not her fault, because
again, not her fault.
Here's what she had said that the director had told her.
Okay.
He said, "It looks too real. It looks too painful. Can you be prettier when you cry? Cry pretty, Jessica. Don't do that thing with your face. Just make it flat. We can CGI the tears in."
Bro, Tim Story said that to her?
Yeah. That's fucked up. That's
not
super fucked up.
Not a good look for you, Mr. Tim Story. Can you look more pretty while you act?
Yeah.
Wow.
While you cry, yeah. Jesus.
Can you look more pretty while you cry? What? Like, why?
Yeah.
I know why. But still, like, you don't talk to human beings like that. I don't care how much money you got behind this movie, man. Can you look like? That's gross.
It's fucking terrible. Ugh. But you know what? Also, I noticed too is because you remember in the comics that there was that weird storyline where Alicia leaves Ben for Johnny, and then it turns out she ends up being a Skrull. So they hint at that a little bit in this. Did you notice that they're hinting at like some chemistry stuff with her and Johnny?
I picked that up because again, when I came into the Fantastic Four comics, I think Johnny and Alicia were a thing at the
Mm.
time. And then all of a sudden, the scroll was running around. And they're like, "Oh yeah, everybody thought that was Alicia, but it was really the scroll." And I was like, okay, I was a child, so whatever."
Yeah,
Comic book.
it was amazing how much we let slide when we were kids reading these books.
Of course. So I did pick up those couple of hints things, because that was always one of the weirdest things about the FF until they revealed ultimately what happened. I was like, wait, so she really left Ben to go be with Johnny, and
Yeah,
these two are still. I know Ben.
Who wrote that story anyway? Do you remember offhand?
I don't remember who wrote that story. I'm trying to think who was writing I want to say it was DeFalco, actually.
Okay.
Because I really feel like DeFalco, that was like early 90s. I think FF was his book.
Okay.
One of his main books, like along with Thunderstrike and stuff like that.
That sounds about right,
yeah. I think it was his tentpole book. So I want to say that was DeFalco.
It sounds about right. Yeah, because I remember, like, I'd never read that story, but just hearing about it, I'm just like, why would anyone even think that was a good idea?
I don't know. Again, it was probably one of those things where someone cast a stone to send Alicia into Johnny's arms, and then they left the book. And then somebody else came in and like, "Oh, I don't like this.
Yeah,
How are you gonna explain this?" And so they're like, "I know, she can be a scroll named Elijah or a scroll named Elijah." Okay.
They also improved the Thing's prosthetics in this. Like, he's got more of a defined brow in this movie.
He does, and they don't change too much from his original look, but they definitely upgraded him a little bit.
It's some slight modifications that really work for the best.
Yes, it also shows his growth in the last 2 years. Like, if you want to go to the point where he's maybe having a few mutations as far as his look, because obviously in the comic books he went through many mutations, like a lot of mutations, in fact.
Yeah.
So there's times he doesn't even look like a thing because he's so effed up. Shout out to John Byrne again for messing with my dude. But again, that shows their willingness to, with the FX. And the FX again is another reason why these movies work for us, or for me, is because it just shows that they're willing to do what's necessary to put these characters on the screen and not get taken out of the story because of bad effects.
Yeah.
So
and they also, with Alba too, she wore a wig in this movie because her hair had actually gotten really damaged because they had bleached it in the first movie, and her hair got damaged when they did that. So,
and I actually liked her hair better in this one, and now that makes sense.
I thought it looked pretty good. Yeah.
Never realized that she was actually wearing a wig. So
yeah,
because her hair in the first one was fine, and I've always, just my general preference, I preferred her with darker hair. So her form at first, it was always like, blonde Jessica Alba is obviously she's fine.
I mean, it's Jessica.
I'm not going to ask her to cry pretty. Yeah, I'm not going to ask her to cry pretty or anything. But I thought her hair definitely looked better, and now that I know she has a wig on, that makes way more sense.
Yeah. While we're on the concept of her hair, I did want to call out. Do you remember what John Byrne said about Jessica Alba?
No, I don't.
Okay, let me see if I can look this up.
Okay, because I'm assuming it was around the time of the movie, so
it was the first movie. Yeah.
Okay.
It was fucking terrible. So
sounds like John Byrne.
Yeah. Jesus Christ, talk about a comic book grace.
Comic book writers are a little problematic here and there.
So here's what he said when the first images of Alba as Sue were released. He wrote on his message board, "Personal prejudice, Hispanic and Latino women with blonde hair look like hookers to me, no matter how clean or cute they are. Somehow those skin tones that look so good with dark hair just don't work for me with lighter shades." Like I said, personal prejudice. Holy fuck.
Prejudice. Not personal opinion, personal prejudice.
Jesus Christ.
I remember that now. Oh. Ooh, that's a terrible hot ass take. John Byrne, I hope I don't even know if his message board is still up, but sometimes the internet does not need your personal prejudice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I do remember I remember him also like getting angry when Christopher Reeve died and people were calling Christopher Reeve a hero, and he's like, he wasn't a hero. And then and then I remember Peter David wrote a great response, like, people will assign, their own labels that apply to different people in their lives, like hero or, I don't know, asshole. I love Peter David's trolling of John Byrne.
Peter David is one of the greats.
Man. He is, yeah.
Always is.
Aside from, even though we had issues with his Scarlet Spider work.
Yeah, it's kind of fire. I mean, what can you do? They can't all be winners. He's written a lot of comics.
He's written so much good stuff. And this is a digression, but I want to say it anyway, because unlike a lot of writers from his generation, he's actually managed to adapt with the times.
He really has. He has, because Frank Miller obviously refuses. And I don't know how he's doing health-wise these days. I know he was kind of pretty bad off a few years ago. I think he's doing better now. But Frank Miller has, like, he stopped trying probably about 2000s, I'd say. But by the time Dark Knight 2
Dark
came
Knight
out,
Strikes
Again came out, DK2, as they kept advertising Wizard. He definitely stopped trying. And I've actually read DK2 on multiple occasions, and I still can't make heads or tails of it.
Have you read?
I don't know why I punish myself.
I think. Did you read DK3, The Master Race?
No, I never read Master Race.
That was actually not bad. That was actually pretty deep. I think a big part of it was because Brian Azzarello was scripting, but it was much better than I expected it to be. But yeah, Miller has definitely declined. Claremont and Byrne declined a lot too.
Yes. They keep wanting to rehash all their old ideas.
Yeah. But the problem is, but David's able to really adapt and to change and to keep his stuff fresh. Like, I mean, his second X Factor run was even better than his first.
Agreed. And I think that has to do with him actually being a genuinely good person who's willing to work with people. That also helps a lot, because I feel like almost every book that Byrne left, like X-Men, Fantastic Four, Superman, like all those big books that he had, Wonder Woman, there was always, when he left, there was like a big deal, because there was like something was going wrong and he wasn't going to get his way on something finally, after they gave him all this creative control, and he was like, you know what, I'm out the door. It's like, all right, John Byrne, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord's
I think you know what it is. I think it's David isn't arrogant. Like, he doesn't buy into his own hype. Like, he's still, he's still able to be humble enough and realize, like, I'm not perfect. That's a quality that I think Miller and Claremont and Byrne and a lot of other guys have lost sight of.
Of course. McFarlane never had that. McFarlane's
always been a humble guy. What are you talking about? And then Rob Liefeld, the humblest man in comics.
Oh shoot!
All right, but back to this
comics,
movie.
Man.
What are some of the things I want to mention? I want to talk about Andre Braugher a little bit in this, because it's funny watching this after I've seen him after Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh my god! Who knew he had Brooklyn Nine-Nine had that character in him, man? Like,
I mean,
everything I'd seen before of him was always super serious and like, don't mess around with me. But then him on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, man, as Holt, it really, to see him be as silly in that ensemble with the rest of them and go on that incredible run with everybody else. I just love his range.
But you know what's so great about him is that he's got all this range while basically having the same affectations. You know what I mean? Because he's still like this deadpan, super serious guy in both of them. But it's a completely different character, and he makes you believe that it's a completely different character in both cases.
Yeah, man, he's a hell of an actor. Hell of an actor. I definitely loved him in the film. Obviously, he's like bought into the the Victor Van Dam, Victor Von Doom of it all. He's like, oh, okay, let's give control to him. And then Reed and Sue and all looking at him like, are you fucking stupid? Like, did you not see what he tried to do 2 years ago? And he's like, listen to Victor. He's back and his face is pretty. So listen to him. And they're like, and Thing and Johnny are having it, and So I hate to see him be so, again, moving the plot along and just being so dumb to give Victor all that control, which obviously led to Victor being able to snatch the surfboard away, the flying disc. But I his presence in any film or television show he's on, he commands respect. So he just has a certain amount of gravitas to him. And he definitely brought it in the film.
And did you know that he's a comic fan?
Oh, I did not.
Yeah, in fact, he had got offered a a guest gig on ER, and he turned it down so that he could be in this because he loved the Fantastic Four growing up.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. See, we're all Fantastic Four
Mhm.
fans, Perry. We there's not a lot for us to celebrate right now. Like if it's all comic books, it's like we have our favorite comic book stories, and we just kind of, because
Mhm.
it's hard to bring up Fantastic Four when MCU's out here doing
Yeah.
MCU stuff. Like, hey, have you read the latest issue of Fantastic Four? And unless you're around some real comic book heads, they're not going to be into it.
Mhm. But also his character, General Hager, do you know who that character was originally supposed to be?
Thunderbolt?
No, Nick Fury.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if it was still going to be Brower playing him, but yeah, the original intention was they wanted that to be Nick Fury. And in fact, Fox was trying to get kind of a cinematic universe started with the first one, because in the first movie, in a deleted scene, Reed shifts his face into Hugh Jackman's.
Right. And the Wolverine, when him and Sue are walking along the river.
And there was supposed to be this and that it was supposed to be like kind of a hint to eventually setting up the fact that the Fantastic Four and the X-Men movies exist in the same universe.
Which could have given us X-Men Fantastic Four if they had done it right, which they would not have
which
done,
they would
right?
not have done. But apparently, and I don't know how true this is, because it was IMDb trivia, but it said that Wolverine was actually supposed to have a cameo in Spider-Man 2 originally as well, but I never heard anything about it. Yeah, that's first time. I don't know if that's just someone talking out their ass or what, but
that's weird. I can't see him at all in that movie. I just rewatched Spider-Man 2 the other morning, just on a whim, and I was watching. I was like, man, this movie still holds up so well.
We covered it. We had a recent episode came out. We talked about it. Yeah.
I listened to it. I think that's what made me want to watch it again. and yeah, I can't see where Raimi would have slapped him in there and have been cool.
Although you listen to the episodes, you know that the Punisher was actually in there.
Yes, I didn't know that until actually the episode. So.
Yeah, that was a surprising bit of trivia that I didn't know about. So that was cool.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of cool. They were thinking outside the box like that.
So let's talk about the Silver Surfer a little bit then.
Okay.
What was your overall opinion of the Silver Surfer in this?
I have no problems with the Silver Surfer. If they had spun this off into a Silver Surfer film, I would have been there for it. Had me a Silver Surfer shirt that I wore proudly for several years until it finally shrunk and it wasn't fitting anymore. But Doug Jones is incredible, and I already like Doug Jones from Hellboy. I really like his portrayal in Hellboy as what is the
Abe
fish?
Sapien.
Thank you, as Abe. Loved him in that film. And then when I found out he was playing this, and then seeing them pull it off, of course, I give him Lawrence Fishburne's voice, which helps a lot to have that red pill, blue pill. You know,
it's funny because it's like I was thinking last night. If you need someone who's going to be covered in a lot of makeup, you get Doug Jones. If you need someone who's going to be covered in a lot of CGI, you get Andy Serkis. Those are the two guys they went to for everything back in those days.
Yes, it was. 100%. Yeah, like the whole film, the way he interacted with Johnny and with the team, the rest of the team, you could really tell. Again, I spoke of gravitas earlier. You could really tell there was weight to this character. There was just so much more lying there for Fox to pick up and essentially throw at us. Yeah. And I think they that was their intention, and it worked. The moment he came on screen until the last moment he's on screen, all eyes was on Silver Surfer. This is truly his movie. That's why his name is on the title. As good as Ben's moments were and Human Torch's moments were, and of course Sue and Reed's roles improving and their chemistry improving on screen. This is Silver Surfer's movie. Rise of Silver Surfer, obviously, and he certainly rose to the occasion. And for me, so I found no issues at all. Even with the emotion he was able to display when they had him locked up and he didn't have the surfboard and he's just sitting there talking about what he's going through and stuff like that. I felt for him. I genuinely was hooked on his story, and I was really ready to see him kind of get his revenge, to kind of fight back finally, which we did get, obviously. And I just thought they did a great job with the whole thing.
to the point you made earlier about how he loses the kind of silver finish when he's separated from the board, I think that
Yeah.
was also a really good choice because that allowed Jones to really kind of emote a lot more than he was able to with the CGI over him.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
that's
think-
exactly what it was.
Yeah, I think that was a good decision because that really allowed him to really that let his emotion and his body language really kind of come through when he's talking to
Yeah,
Sue in that
I could just still see him sitting there with his head down, shoulders down, you know, and like feeling like he had just gotten scolded by the worst parent in the world, man. And
Right.
obviously he didn't do nothing except what Galactus what he was sent there to do, which is to help set up Earth to be destroyed.
Yeah.
To be eaten.
And I love that they did more with Johnny and Ben in this movie too. Like they did such a good job of really showing the complexity of their relationship. Like, yeah, they rip on each other. Yeah, they make fun of each other. But at the end, they really do love each other like brothers. Like that scene with the two of them in the bar, that was pitch perfect Johnny and Ben. Like if I'm going to give
Fresh
someone
off the comic book page,
if I'm going to give someone a textbook on how to write a very simple primer on how to write Johnny and Ben's relationship, I give them that scene because that is the perfect example of their relationship.
Oh yeah. Again, we've said this many times how well they nailed the relationship, but getting to see them not be superheroes in that moment and just really sit there and have that conversation, it did show the depth of their friendship.
Well, something that was nice
also-
about it too is it's a reversal of their typical roles too, because usually it's Ben who's down on himself because his powers and all that kind of
Right,
stuff.
and this time it's Johnny.
And this time it's Johnny. And so we have Ben counseling him from a place of experience. And I thought that was a really cool aspect of it too.
Right. And any time that you're, again, a lot of the film is about changing powers, but you also got to see them change roles as well. So so that scene worked really well for me too. I did like to see that, and to see that, as annoying as he is, Ben does look at Johnny as a little brother.
Yeah.
And to see Ben be able to dole out some wisdom, that was very cool.
And I also like that they leaned into the celebrity aspect. I love that. And I like that they show in small ways that Ben has become very comfortable with who he is. Right.
Oh,
like you were
yeah.
saying before, like in the first movie, just like in the early comics, he's very much down on himself. You know, I'm this man, this monster type of thing.
Mhm.
But over the time in the comic books, he's come to accept who he is. And it feels a little bit tacked on at the end of the first movie when he says like, no, I'm fine the way I am. Like it felt a little bit tacked on. It felt like they didn't do enough exploration of that growth. But I like that growth continues into this movie, and that he's very fine with who he is. He's comfortable in his own skin now. I love the scene when they're in the club and he's just at the bar and he's like, I need the biggest pitcher with the biggest handle you can find. He's just kind of like dancing.
Right. He's just like,
He's like dancing in his little button-down shirt. I love that.
yes. Yeah, man, because that's been in his element. Again, the moments the team gets to put their hair down is some of the best moments for the Fantastic Four anyway. Because of course you open up a Fantastic Four book, you turn on the movies, you expect they'll be fighting some threat. But a lot of the times when they're just in the Baxter building and interacting with each other, a lot of the times those are the best parts because you get to truly see why they're the first family of Marvel and how they work. And when the movie gets to do that as well, they absolutely nailed it. But then it's like, oh, we gotta get back to the fight scene. Gotta push the plot. Come on, guys, let's go. Keep it moving. So it was few and far in between, unfortunately. But when they were in those little moments, they absolutely got it.
Right. Whenever they had those moments, they absolutely nailed them. 100%.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
Yeah. What was something else I wanted to mention? Where is it? I don't know. Is there anything else you want to mention while I'm trying to think of what I was going to say?
Well, I've already briefly touched on the plot where they kill Sue for a few minutes. I mean, that really didn't do it, and she dies in Reed's arms, as it says on Wikipedia, and of course, I mean, that was her death scene. Like I said, I was worried the first time. I was like, all right, are they going to kill Sue? That's kind of crazy. Are they going to kill Sue? But then every time I watch it afterwards, and I know she's going to be revived, it's just kind of like I'm counting down the minutes till she's revived, and it feels really empty. A lot of empty calories there. So I don't love that. I do love the wedding at the end. I love how they quickly got married and then something was happening and they had to take off again.
Mhm.
And of course, you mentioned it was their 5th attempt at getting married.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they finally got the nuptials in. The fantastic car. The fantastic car. When that came out and then they broke the pieces and they
Mhm.
went their different directions. Again, I I I my Fantastic Four teeth came from those early issues. And funny thing, I'm going to mention this about Sue. They introduced the Fantastic Car, and then it would go off in 4 different directions. In those early issues, they would do like pinups
Mhm.
where they would draw Torch, they draw Ben, they draw Mr. Fantastic. They drew Sue, right, Perry?
Mhm.
And then there was a little note saying, "Notice the detail on the Invisible Girl's control column, showing that her controls are just as complicated as the
Jesus
boys."
Christ.
Because apparently they wanted to point out that she was just as
Oh
capable of the
God.
boys of flying these
Well, I mean,
fantastic
they
cars.
had to have that note in there because if you remember those early issues, she's written like she's brain damaged. So
Right. And they even put in like they colored it like red and blue and green so you could really see that she had a bunch of knobs up there
Mm.
and it was hard work for her to fly that car. And she wasn't getting off easy. No siree.
One thing about the Fantastic Car, and this is just like a small thing, but
Yeah.
um, like in the comics, right? Each person has their own car, right?
Yes.
They didn't have that, like because the Surfer is basically riding shotgun with Sue, and so it's instead of breaking up into 4 cars, it only breaks up into 3 cars.
That's true. But Johnny
No,
Johnny was
he was flying
Johnny was
alongside.
flying.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe that's why they only had the
That
3
that was
option because
why,
Johnny
which
can
is
fly.
that was something I didn't like about it.
Yeah, because in the comic books they literally
Right,
they
yeah.
they all went their little separate ways. I think they were scouring the city for Namor or something. I think maybe after Namor took off. So
Mhm.
um yeah, but I like seeing that because again that was the FF that I grew up on. So
Right.
I was really thought that was cool.
Well,
that
even
they
me
got to
as
put
like
it in
only
there.
being, not really being a fan of the comics, but still knowing enough about them, I even thought that was a cool moment. And
Yeah.
when I saw this movie the first time, it's like, oh sweet, the Fantastic Car. That's awesome.
Yeah, I would not have the same enthusiasm if the Spider-Mobile ever shows up, though.
I
I will
don't think
warn you
anyone would
now.
have.
Like, oh god, the
Wait,
Spider-Mobile.
I will if they treat it the way that Spider-Man treated in the comic books, where he's like, "What the fuck is this thing? This is ridiculous."
He wrecked the son of a bitch, and he couldn't drive anyway. He couldn't drive and wrecked it, and then I think they got it fixed, and then I think it got messed up again.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I do remember that in some old comics in the 70s when he was driving it and he just complaining about it the whole time. He's like, why am I driving this thing?
Can you imagine seeing Spider-Man in the Spider-Man mobile? Like, come on, like, bro, are you out of web fluid? Like, what's going on there, Spider-Man? He's like, inflation sucks.
It's so weird when they think about these. Like I remember the superpowers toy lines. They had like Superman had like a flying car or something. Like he's Superman.
Right.
Why does he need a
Why
flying
does he
car?
need a flying car? So he can sell more toys. That's all it is. All it is.
Oh, so I remember what I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And this is kind of a small thing, but I think one of the things I've always liked about the Fantastic Four is that their purpose, it's not like as a superhero team. Primarily, they're a team of explorers. That's their whole thing.
Right.
One of the things I didn't like here, and this is, I know this is a small nitpick, and I know everyone who's listening is like, oh, come on, Perry, this is too much. But I did think this did stick out to me was when she goes to Reed and she says, the city's trying to, bill us for this car we destroyed during this armored car robbery type of thing. And I'm like, Fantastic Four shouldn't be stopping armored car robberies. Like they should be doing, weird and exciting shit. So that was kind of mundane for me.
No, I get it, and I agree with you. But again, the only reason it works, there's no other superheroes around.
Yeah.
So that's where they get stuck with that bill.
Yeah.
But no, I agree that they're not street level people. That's Daredevil, that's Spider-Man who would handle that kind of stuff. So I can totally see your point, and I don't think it's so much of a nitpick. And in the MCU, if they're doing that kind of stuff, then it's like, oh, come on, that really makes no sense. But it was a throwaway line, and that they should not be doing those kind of things, because like you said, they're adventurers, they explore, they go into the negative zone. Their Reed obviously is always trying to find new scientific breakthroughs and takes the whole family with them.
Well, I mean, I think you could have easily done that same scene with that line. It's just you replace it with armored car robbery with something a little bit more fantastic, right? Like, you know, like, oh, so the city's after us because of that, you know, that interdimensional breach that happened, and there's something like that, right?
Yes, that would make way more sense. So you fixed it.
Yeah, and it's just like one line of dialogue, and that would have fixed the whole thing. Let's see. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to mention. Is there anything else I'm leaving out?
No, the only thing is why did the Paracosmic wake up Victor? Can anyone explain that to me?
And I don't understand what that guy was doing with the buzzsaw, or like how when Doom comes to Silver Surfer, like the Silver Surfer blasts him and Doom gets cured. What?
Yeah, like what is it about Doom and the Paracosmic, man?
Yeah,
like I'm not here for any of that. And you're really telling me that Doom was still frozen until the all these things started happening on the planet. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, it's time for me to wake up, have me a morning coffee, and then go destroy the Fantastic Four. come on, man. So yeah, I definitely think Julian McMahon had a 2-film deal, and they were like, we'll get you back in here, don't worry. And it was what it was.
Yeah.
But I did appreciate this Doom a little better than first Doom, but
he was a little bit better. But yeah, completely unnecessary, 100% unnecessary addition to this movie. And it just, again, this movie, if you're going to do a movie where Doom's going after the Silver Surfer, fine. That should then be the climax. Don't then have Galactus pop up in the last 10 minutes.
Right.
I mean, or if you're going to have Galactus pop up at the end, then you have Galactus pop up in the end as a cliffhanger, and then boom, third movie is going to be like, you know, the coming of Galactus or something.
Right. And then it could be literally the whole film just dealing with Galactus by itself. And again, you got to remember it's 2007 though. So same year that Raimi wanted to only do a Sandman movie, and then he got stuck with Venom.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if let's give the creators a little bit of credit here. Maybe they're like, all right, we're going to have Doom and Silver Surfer face off. And they're like, yeah, but let's go ahead and get Galactus in there. Like, well, Galactus, we were going to, no, let's go ahead and get Galactus in there. Like, well, I mean, I guess we'll put Galactus in the movie. Fine. And when and then of course it got poor reception.
Yeah.
No one really, it did not get high approval ratings, or a lot of critics didn't like it. That's what I'm trying to say. So slowly the third movie kind of fell out of favor. But I'm going to say I really hope that there was plans to give Galactus more of his own feature.
There was. In fact, there was plans. This movie was, the idea was 2 movies were going to come out after this movie. One was going to be a third Fantastic Four movie, which Tim Story has said he wanted to go to Wakanda, and he wanted to have Jimon Hanso as the Black Panther.
Yes.
So that was one thing that was what he really wanted to do in the third movie. And then there was going to be a Silver Surfer movie with Doug Jones reprising his role as Silver Surfer, but he was going to do the voice this time too. And then they were going to, at this point, they said they did plan to have Galactus in his actual form be in the movie.
I remember that now. Okay. And of course, all that just fell by the wayside.
And then that fell by the wayside. If I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong about this because, you know, it's all this development hell type stuff, but I believe that the Silver Surfer movie actually survived longer than the third Fantastic Four movie did. Because I think there was still an idea, kind of like with Daredevil and Elektra, where it's like, well, maybe we can still salvage this franchise with another character, with a spinoff.
Okay. So I thought I remember that there was going to be a Silver Surfer movie, and it was hanging around pretty much into the late 2000s, I think. So
yeah,
I don't know how much I would have loved for, obviously with no idea of what we would get in 2018. I don't know how much I would love to have Black Panther introduced in the third Fantastic Four movie, but of course I wouldn't have anything to compare it to, so I might have loved it just like I like these films a lot. But
I mean,
nothing would come close to what we actually.
I mean, yeah, I think ultimately we got the better end of it because we got, you know, Chadwick Boseman, but at the same time, Hanso was would have been a great pick for the Black Panther back in those days.
He would have been. He was definitely a high commodity actor. He shown, again, talking about range. He has plenty of range.
He voiced T'Challa on the animated series that BET did.
Oh, he did.
Yeah,
he did. Okay, I did not remember that because I watched that and I completely. It's been a long time.
I'm just gonna double check, but I'm pretty sure that he did the voice.
Then yeah, he knows the character.
Yeah,
better.
He did the voice. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I completely forgot that. So maybe it could have been good. Maybe it could have been. Maybe we sitting here talking about the Fantastic Four trilogy, Perry. I don't know.
It would. I think he wanted. I mean, there are two different things I've heard. I've heard that he wanted to do Wakanda, but I also heard that he wanted to do the Puppet Master too.
Oh yes. Classic FF film.
Yeah.
How you translate the Puppet Master to film, I don't know.
I think that's probably why they had the Wakanda stuff in it too, because I don't think it would have been enough for the studio to be like, that's a little bit too. That's not enough stuff for the third movie. It also would have been kind of a letdown too. I think if you went with something so small after shitting the bed on Galactus, basically. So it's like, yeah, we gave you 5 minutes of Galactus, and now we're gonna have the Puppet Master.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a reach. And I was just thinking about the timeline. This came out in 2007.
Yeah.
Little did we know that a year later we were going to get something like Iron Man. So that just shows how ballsy Paramount and Marvel Studios was in 2008 to really, again, everybody's like, so they've seen Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man in so many films now. Everybody's like, oh, he was great and everything. It's always so great. Not a lot of people were super excited about him in 2008 when Iron Man came out, and not a lot of people thought Iron Man would work either.
Fox was actually going after him to play a role in the first Fantastic Four movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do we know what role?
Yes, we do. Do you want to take any guesses?
Doom?
Yep. They had wanted him to play Doom.
I was sitting here trying to think of who I would cast in the MCU, and I was like, it's too bad that Robert Downey Jr. already was Tony Stark, because he would be a fantastic Doctor Doom.
That's a good segue. So I asked you last time if you have any ideas for who you'd want to play the FF in the new movie.
I only got one person, and it's the most important person to me because he's my favorite, which is the Thing. My selection, and I don't know if he's too old or not, but it's going to be CGI, makeup, whatever. But I think he would have the presence to pull it off. I really think Dean Norris would be great as the Thing from Breaking Bad.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Hank Schrader. I think. I mean, he talks a little like this, and then like that, but a little deep in the voice, a little bit of a more of a New York accent, maybe.
I think his voice is perfect, but I think if you're going to be doing if you're going to be showing him as Ben, I don't think he works as Ben. I think he's perfect.
He looks too old.
He's too old to be like a contemporary of Reed, I think.
Yeah.
But I think if you have him do the voice and you have someone else play Ben in the pre-transformation, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah. Because I can, just from watching so much Breaking Bad and all the shows, I always heard it. I was like, you'd be really good at being a Thing. I think I'd like to hear him do that. And he was the first one to pop in my head, and I was trying to rack my brain, and then you pop back up on the camera, and I was like, okay, let's get back to work here.
You know what? I know the internet loved what's John Krasinski as Reed. What was your thoughts on him in Doctor Strange?
I was very surprised because I avoided spoilers, so go me.
Oh God, you got lucky. I was like, for me in a headline.
Oh, did it? That sucks. I was like, it's Jim. And then I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, he's got the beard Reed going on. Okay. And I was like, he's got the present, he got the silver streaks, and everything. I'm like, I liked it a lot, but then
Mhm.
of course, and one of my gripes about Multiverse of Madness was it's like you got these cameos and you're like, oh yo, these are so cool, and then everybody was dead within 15 minutes. It's on
Yeah.
Disney Plus. If you haven't seen it, I'm sorry. But and so that was a little disappointing. But I was like, yo, he's kind of perfect for the role. He's a little older, so I
Mhm.
don't know if he would work in the actual as Mr. Fantastic, but I thought in the multiverse concept, I love seeing him.
I thought
Uh,
he was fine for what he did in Multiverse. I'm not sure if I'd want him to be the regular Reed in the
right, right.
MCU, but I thought he did. I thought it was fine for what he was doing in that movie. One name that was tossed out that was pretty brilliant, I thought, was William Jackson Harper from The Good Place.
Oh my God, I'm rewatching The Good Place right now. Actually, I'm in season 2 again, and I love his performance as Chidi, man. Like
Yeah.
he's such a nerdy, obviously so nerdy that he ended up in the bad place. Spoilers again, it's on Netflix. But he's just so nerdy, and if they really wanted to go that way, he would be perfect because
He'd
he
do
could
pretty
come
good.
off as
Yeah.
brainy. His chemistry with Kristen Bell
In
was
fact, I was
amazing.
thinking Kristen Bell as Sue would also be a good pick too.
Yeah, I would not be mad at seeing them reunite. I think that could be a lot of fun because Kristen Bell,
Mhm.
obviously she's done her fair share of character type roles with Veronica Mars and stuff
Then
like
what
that. But
do we get Jason to come in as the Human Torch? Johnny.
what's up, dudes? Portals.
Oh, and then we get Jamila Jamil as the Thing.
You could
There
do
we
that
go.
because she's playing Titania
She's
in
doing
She-Hulk.
Titania and She-Hulk.
Yeah. So we could just have her be Titania
There
in
you
the
go. Yeah,
Fantastic
yeah.
Four. So
Have a
we can
good
just say,
place reunion.
yeah, absolutely. That I'm going to
But
actually
actually, you know what
tweet all
though?
of them right
But
now.
speaking of good place, now that I've said that, I think Adam Scott could also make an interesting read as well.
Oh my God, he's such the perfect asshole. Every time he's on anything, and he gets to be that smarky little asshole.
Mhm.
Like aside from Parks, because in Parks obviously he was amazing,
Yeah.
but whenever he gets to be that little smarky know it all, especially like from Step Brothers,
Mhm.
he was when he gets to be that guy. That actually kind of speaks a lot of Doom to me too. I could see him doing a little Doom, but if you want to keep him on the lighter side, he would be a perfect read.
I think you
I
do.
think he
Yeah, I
could,
think if you combined his characters from Parks and Rec with The Good Place, like you had that both the good side and the dark side, I think you could make a really interesting, arrogant read.
yeah, like kind of like Ultimate Fantastic Four Reed was before.
Mhm.
Obviously, he broke bad. See,
Yeah.
I went full circle there. So he could be good too. I really like Adam Scott. He's one of those characters again that shows up, and it's like you don't know which way he's going to go. He's not necessarily going to be bad. He's not necessarily going to be good. He can go both ways, but a lot of times he ends up being a big old jerk.
So, what about Doom? Who do you think should play Doom?
That was a tough one because my mind went immediately to Robert Downey Jr. and then I was trying to rack my brains about actors who could possibly fill those shoes because we haven't seen it done right yet. So
Mhm.
you really want to make sure you get the casting right. Do you have any ideas off the top
I
of
don't
your
know.
head?
My perfect pick would have been Mads Mikkelsen,
Mm,
but not he was in Doctor Strange, so I don't know if they could have
yes.
done. Although I'm looking at this article and they've got some. This is a Screen Rant article. I just typed in Google who should play Doctor Doom,
Okay.
and one article they have tossing out some names they tossed out. Killian Murphy,
Mm,
Viggo Mortensen, and Adam Driver are probably the ones that are the most interesting choices to me, especially
sure.
Mortensen because have you ever seen The Prophecy?
I've not seen the prophecy.
Oh God, you got to watch The Prophecy.
Okay.
It's this movie. It was in the early '90s, mid or early mid '90s, and it has Christopher Walken plays a psychotic angel. The
Okay.
whole idea behind the movie is that after Lucifer and the angel and his rebellion was cast out, there was a second war in heaven led
Mm,
by Christopher Walken's character, Gabriel. And now this
okay.
war is persisting in the present day. And because the war still exists, any human who dies can't go to heaven, right? Heaven's closed
Oh
off to all
shit.
humanity.
Okay.
And it's got Elias Koteas from
Casey
Casey
Jones.
yeah.
Yes.
And it's got Virginia Madsen's in it, and Viggo Mortensen plays Lucifer in it, and he is fucking chilling. He is awesome.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do like some Viggo, so I'd be okay with that.
Check out that movie. But also, now I was talking about Lucifer. It also made me think of Tom Ellis from the Lucifer TV show. I've seen Lucifer,
but I actually watched him on a show they had right before Lucifer, the one that was on USA. I don't know if you ever caught it. It was like one season that got canceled. I think it was called Rush, maybe. I don't know. I really liked him in that. He actually, let me. I gotta look at this picture real quick because I think I'm thinking about the right guy. Oh yeah, I think he should be Doom. Tom Ellis would be my pick for Doom because just from me watching him on that other show, because I've seen a few episodes of Lucifer, but seeing him on Rush, and he was like this good and bad doctor kind of thing, and seeing him balance that line between doing horrible shit and good stuff. It was more horrible shit than anything. I think he would be a real good Doom, and he's got that pretty look. So when he gets scarred up, he'll be even more pissed off.
Yeah. I think that would be a really interesting choice.
I like that.
So yeah, and that's about all I got to say about Rise of the Silver Surfer. Again, it's the best of the Fantastic Four movies we've gotten so far.
Give us Fantastic Four 3.
I don't know if I go that far, but
no, I know.
But
I was just gonna say, I just love the FF so much that I can't help but enjoy these movies. Now the Trank film is absolute trash, so I do have some respect for myself, people. but these two films, especially when they came out in that era of here's a comic book movie, will you like it or not? And I just happened to grab hold of both of them. And Silver Surfer is quite the ride. Fantastic Four is a pony ride, a quarter pony ride, but it's worth a watch as well.
Yeah.
So definitely recommend Rise of Silver Surfer. Fantastic Four, you can take it or leave it.
Yeah.
But I just love them because it was a pretty accurate portrayal of what I always thought the FF to be when they were in the right moments.
Yeah.
Doom, not so much.
They really stuck to the tone of the comics, I thought. And that's one of the things that overall I think they got far more right than wrong with these movies.
Yes.
Like the movies are definitely flawed, don't get me wrong. There are lots of flaws. And if you can go back and listen to this podcast again, you can hear me talk about them. But
you should listen to it multiple times.
There you
run
go.
The numbers up. Run those numbers up, people.
But yeah, more good than bad in these movies, especially the second one.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But I'm really glad you let me come on here and talk about them.
Oh,
I was afraid you had already covered it. That's why I was like, "Have you done Fantastic Four movies?" You're like, "Tim's Story." I was like, "Yes." You're like, "No." I'm like, "Let's go."
I'm glad you suggested those because those were, there's some big holes in the movies that we've covered on this show, like where we got we got like the ones everybody expects us to have covered, and then something that people would probably expect us to have covered, but we don't. Like a lot of the X-Men films, Spider-Man 2 up until recently. The Dark Knight still hasn't been on the show. So, but the Fantastic Four movies was another one of those kind of visible holes because these were pretty, kind of by virtue by the fact there wasn't a whole lot else being released at the time, but they were pretty big superhero movies when they came out at the time.
Yeah, they were a big deal, and the first one worked, and they got a sequel. So
it worked enough. Let's put it that way.
Worked enough.
Yeah,
fair enough. I'll agree to that
because they got and I'm not talking about like my personal perspective. I'm just talking about from the studio standpoint because that first movie did get raked over the coals in critics, and critics did not like that one either. No, and it had made just enough, but it had made enough money to justify a sequel.
So yeah, it was a totally different time, and like I said, we were a year away from Iron Man. Little did we know. But there was a lot of different comic book films, superhero films being thrown out there. So I love being able to come over here and talk about some of my favorites. And I'm going to dig through the archives and see what else I can do. Because I could talk about Dark Knight ad nauseum. But but I'm sure there's some other things that I might be able to help you fill in those gaps with. So
Okay, awesome.
I'll let you know, sir.
Yeah, well, you know what? Tossing this out there. There's still the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movies. We haven't covered those yet.
Sorry, can't do it. Can't do it.
Although we do have the CGI one from the early 2000s.
If you're doing 2007, I'm in.
Okay, so we'll have to
we'll
talk
have to
about
mark that one down. We'll get that one on the calendar here eventually.
All right, man.
But I love the 2007 one.
Yeah.
The Michael Bay one, the first one I had on Blu-ray, and I watched it once, and I was like, this ain't for me. And I never messed with the second one.
Yeah.
Even though I heard the second one's apparently better.
I mean, yeah, but
he said, nah.
It's better in the sense that a rotten steak is better than a rancid steak.
Oh, okay,
so it's better in that sense. But
speaking about Michael Bay, have you done any Transformers?
No, we haven't done any of those.
Okay, because I've kind of been wanting to do a little bit on the at least the first 3 Transformers movies.
Okay,
I've not seen the last 2 that came out. But we could totally talk about how I think Dark of the Moon is the best movie in the franchise at some point too. So
okay,
2007 Turtles and the first 3 Transformers. We'll have to do that.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll see about getting those set up off mic.
Yeah,
but,
man.
But until
Absolutely.
then, tell people where they can find you.
They can find me on the show talking about Transformers. hyphenuniverse.com is where you'll find all my podcasts, and I got a YouTube channel as well. It's just Universe. You can subscribe, check out my videos and all that stuff. You can be part of the 63 subscribers. And also you can find me on social medias at B- on Twitter, the B- on Instagram, and Universe on Facebook. Let me know what's up, please. I appreciate any of that.
And as for us, superherocinephiles.com is the website, Super Cinema Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And remember, if you sign up for the Patreon, you get these episodes a week in advance. And you also get the companion podcast, Superhero Cinephiles Book Club, where we talk about comics and all that kind of fun stuff. Kel, thanks again for coming on. Always a good time.
Thanks for having me. And I love filling in for the big guy, man.
Anytime, man. I'm sure he'd be very happy to know that you're filling in on occasion here.
He better be. I listen to a lot of Billy Ocean, Derek, and I think of you. I'm like every time. No, actually, every time I hear Billy Ocean, I think of you, Derek, and the time that you danced at that show, and you said, if you show anybody this, I'll kill you. And then I posted it after you passed. So I'm sorry, not sorry, but you were having a great time.
So you better move aside for any lightning bolts coming down.
I know he might go doom fingers on me. Who knows? You're coming up here with me, buddy.
All right. That does it for this episode of Superhero Cinephiles. Thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time. If you enjoyed the Superhero Cinephiles, then you'll also love my companion podcast, the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club. All my Patreon subscribers get access to this exclusive podcast where I review superhero comics and graphic novels. Not sure what comics you want to read next or what you should dive into? I've got you covered on that. I'll be doing reviews, recommendations, and also talking to you about useful entry points if you're interested in reading some comics but don't know where you should start. Plus, you'll get access to all episodes of the main show a week before everyone else. On all of this for as little as just $1 a month. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/supercinemapod and you can sign up at any subscription amount to get started. Thanks so much for your support, and please don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.